everybody, Mean Joe from Balsa USA. Welcome to episode 8 of the Balsa USA Beginner Build series. It's been quite a while since we've been able to get an episode filmed, and quite honestly that's because Mean Joe's had a lot of construction going on around here and I haven't been able to get into my shop up here until recently. So now you can see we've got the shop updated, we've got updated lighting, we've got updated video, we've got updated audio, we've added a lot of things to the shop, and we've made things all around better, able to get stuff done. Now, on this episode of the Build series, we're actually going to talk about getting the wing joined on our Balsa USA Stick 40 Plus, so that soon we're going to be able to get the electronics installed on this airframe and get her in the air. Now I will tell you, I did make the decision to go away from a glow motor on this build, only just because, quite honestly, my local hobby shop is 2.5 hours away, and the availability of glow fuel in my area is going to be a little bit tough. So to make things easier and to be able to get this thing in the air a lot more often, I went ahead and made the decision to swap this out to an electric build, and that's how we're going to move forward. We are going to be using the Balsa USA Stick 40 Plus electric conversion parts, which I will show you in the video, and I will tell you how to get your hands on yours if you don't already have them, and we'll move on from there. As usual, I thank you very much for watching, and happy building. Okay, so the next step in the instructions is going to be to set the dihedral for the wing panels. Now keep in mind that the dihedral braces are going to be the only thing that holds the wing together, so you're going to want to make sure you put these in here correctly. What I'll do on this step is I'm going to actually use epoxy on the ends when I join the two wings together so that I get a much stronger joint. So the first thing you're going to want to do, what I've done is I've taken a piece of block and I've made this a 1 3/8 inch block. Okay, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stick this underneath your wingtip. That is actually going to set the dihedral for you so that when you sand on this end of the wing, both wings will match and you'll have your dihedral. So all you have to do at this point, I wanted to make sure I pointed this out. In the instructions it says with your wing pinned firmly to your board, you don't want to have your wing pinned to your board at all. One thing you might be able to do is put a couple of pins down here just to hold it down so it doesn't slide around on you. And actually I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that. This is going to help me hang on to it a little bit better, and that's really it. So all I'm going to do is place a pin right here. And I'm going to place a pin right here. That just gives me a little bit of help, keep it from wiggling around on my bench while I'm trying to do the sanding. Then at this point, all you're going to do is take your sanding block. You can either make one like I've done here out of a balsa block from our balsa block bag o' blocks storage, or you can use any block you want as long as it's got a straight edge. I would make sure that you use one that has a flat edge so that when you use it on your bench, you're keeping your dihedral correct on both wing panels. The important thing to remember about this is you're not actually going to be removing a whole lot of material. You've already blocked up your wing 1 3/8 inches on the end of your bench here. And when you sand this, you're really not going to be taking much off. I will shoot a picture here so that you can see what it is. Get a good wing join when you're all finished here with both panels. And then simply all you do is run the sanding block along the edge. I would perform that on both the leading edge and the trailing edge just to make sure that you get a good joint when you bring the other wing panel in. So now what it says to do is to glue the two dihedral braces in. There's going to be one in front of the spar and one behind the spar. So what I'm going to do is, it says to glue them in. I'm actually not going to glue them in at this point. I'm going to stick them in here and I'm going to make sure my fit is good with my other panel before I glue these in. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if I need to do any sanding, as you can see, it's going to be a whole lot easier to sand without the dihedral braces installed. So I'm just going to leave these here. I might get some low-tack tape and put some low-tack tape right here so that when I check the fit with the other wing, we'll see how good it fits. So I'm not going to glue those in right this second. I'm just going to set those over out of the way. I'm going to grab the other wing panel here and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I've got my 1 inch and 3/8 inch block. I'm going to set this down on my bench. And I'm going to go ahead and sand this on the end till it's square. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test my fit. And now you're going to see why I didn't go ahead and glue my dihedral braces in, because there may be some adjustments that you need to make between the two wing panels and the dihedral braces to get everything to fit snug. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test my fit with my dihedral brace here. And as you can see, that looks pretty good. I think we're right on the money. It's going to take a little bit of sanding just to make sure everything has got a smooth finish, but I think that's going to be perfect. I can also check with my other dihedral brace. Go ahead and insert that one in. Go ahead and put this one up to it and just kind of hold them in place so you can check it. And I think we're going to be in good shape. So now what I'll do is I'll go on back to the spot where I glue in the dihedral braces. So what I'm going to use for this step for gluing my dihedral braces in place is I'm going to actually use Balsa USA Gold Thick CA. And then once that's set, I'm going to come back around all the edges with some thin, just to give it a little bit of extra strength. Now when I join the two wings together, I am going to use 12-minute epoxy to give me some working time to make sure that the two wing halves, when I join them together, are going to be strong enough to support the wing and the load of the airplane. But for this step, you can go ahead and just use some thick and it will be perfectly fine. So I'm going to get this positioned here where I can get some good glue on here. And I'm just going to put down a nice bead of thick on both sides. Keep in mind your dihedral brace goes with the angle, the pointed end of the angle, towards the bottom of the wing. Just going to put this in place here. You're going to want to make sure that it's flat against the bottom of the wing here. That's what's going to give you the dihedral in your wings. Going to hit this with just a little bit of kicker. I'm going to leave it set for a second so that it gets nice and soaked in. Wicked into the wood a little, and I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some kicker. Now you'll see here that I've actually, with my finger, I broke this sheeting out, and I'll show you a quick easy way to fix that here in just 1 minute. Now that the dihedral brace is in place on this side, I'm going to leave that dry, and I'm going to put the dihedral brace in on the other side. Keep in mind there's going to be one in front of the spar and one behind the spar. Before I glue that, I'm going to double check my fit to make sure everything aligns correctly. Looks like we're going to be good to go. So now I can glue this other brace in place. Just going to take a little bit of thick and run a bead of thick down. Matching the angle from the other side. I'm just going to slide the brace in place, making sure that it's flat against the bottom. You're also going to want to look down inside to make sure it goes all the way over to the first wing rib that's in there. Everything looks good. Everything matches up. I'm going to hit the inside of this with a little bit of kicker. And that should be good to go. So I can go ahead and test fit my two wing halves together. And we're going to be good to go. What I might do, you can see here that I've got just a little bit of a gap. And what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to take just a teeny little bit off the end of the inside dihedral brace. I think that's actually holding me out on the other side just a little teeny bit. And I want to make sure I get a good solid fit when I join the wings together with some epoxy here on the next step. Yeah, it's holding me out just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to sand this outside dihedral brace just a little bit on the end. You're going to want that joint to be as good as you can get it so that your wing is nice and solid. I'll go ahead and take just a little bit more off of that. Make sure you mind your angles. Keep in mind when you're doing some fits like this, you want to go real slow on your sanding. You don't want to take too much off because you can always sand more. You can't put wood back. I think that's going to be good to go. That looks like it's going to fit real nice. I don't see any issues. And I think we're going to be golden. Once you get everything finished, you'll want to do a little bit of sanding at the end. But I think that's going to be good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull this off of here. And I'm going to show you because when I was joining my wing, I actually cracked this sheeting right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a little bit of thin on a pipette. And I'm going to use the pipette and put just a little bit of thin on that crack so that I don't have to worry about it later. It doesn't take a lot. Just put a little bit of thin in there on both sides. And the interesting part about that now is that piece of sheeting right there is going to be stronger than it was before. There you go. See, and that's all good to go. So keep in mind as you're doing these projects, if you break something or if you mess something up, it's just wood. Most of the stuff that you're ever going to do is going to be completely repairable. Don't be afraid to take a step, because there's always going to be little things that you do while you build that you're going to have to go back and fix and repair. Going to check my fit one more time just to make sure I'm good to go. And I think we're going to be golden. Very good. And you can see here the dihedral that you get. That's what we're looking for. That's 1 3/8 inches on both sides to give you the dihedral you need for the wing. Now we'll move on to the next step and we'll get these joined together. So one of the things that I wanted to point out that's not really referenced that good in the plans is this piece of sheeting here. So what I had done, I don't know if you noticed it earlier, but on the right wing panel, I already put this in place, which is fine. But I held off to put the left side in place until after I had all of the dihedral braces and everything sanded down so that I get a good fit when I'm done. What I did just now is I went ahead and I glued that section in so that when the two wing halves come together, I'll get a good fit. Those aren't really that well referenced in the manual, so I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. So the next step is going to be to glue the W1 rib in place. Now this is going to be the rib that's die cut in 2 pieces. You have the trailing edge side and the leading edge side. And what I'm going to do before I do any gluing is I'm going to test fit these in their space to make sure that they fit correctly. What I'm going to end up having to do here with the nylon guide is I'm going to have to go ahead and cut the hole through the nylon guide here. So what I'll do with this in place is I'll just make a little dimple in the balsa with the end of the nylon guide, and that'll show me, it's going to be hard to see on film, but there's going to be an imprint there of the end of the nylon guide. I can go ahead and open that up so that when I put this on here, it doesn't interfere. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to glue these in place when I get them in there. What I'm going to do instead of that is I'm going to leave them loose so that when I put the two wing halves together, I can ensure that I'm getting a solid fit. You can see here on the front, with the leading edge piece of the W1 rib, I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding to get it to fit in place properly, which is totally fine. You just want to sand it down a little bit at a time so that you get a good fit on the end. See how the end cap is not quite lined up? Not a problem at all. Just give it a little bit of sanding and it should go in there perfectly fine. So now you can see here with just a little bit of sanding, the leading edge W1 rib is now fits perfectly in its spot. Again, I haven't glued this yet. Anytime you're doing these pieces like this, make sure you sand just a little bit at a time and test your fit. Sand it just a little bit of a time and test your fit. So what I did with this is I took 2 passes on my sanding block, and then I came back and I checked the fit. It didn't fit again, so I came back and I sanded just a little bit more, and you can see here I get a perfect fit. Again, I'm not going to glue these in place until I make sure that everything fits, and then once I get them fit, I'm going to leave them in place and glue them in before I join the wings together. That way I get a perfectly good fit all the way down. So what I did is I went ahead and drilled my hole for my nye rod. And you can see here, everything's already set up and ready to go. I still have not glued this yet. I'm going to do the other side too first before I do that, so that when I push them together, I can make sure I have a good fit. So right now I'm going to set the other side up with the left wing panel and do the exact same process here and get these 2 pieces to fit. Okay, so now you can see I've got everything sanded and everything's fitting good. So what I've actually done is I've went ahead and I've pinned down the left wing panel to my bench. On this end of the wing, I have my dihedral block all set underneath the end of my wing. And all I've done here was pin the center of this wing panel down so that way my dihedral will be correct. when I epoxy this together. So now what the next step is to make sure everything fits good. Everything looks like it's going to line up real good. And then what I'll do is I'll go through and I will epoxy the two wing halves together. What I'm actually going to use for this step is I'm going to use Balsa USA Gold 12-minute epoxy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to epoxy the two wing halves together all the way down. And then what I would suggest, if you have some, go ahead and place some clamps. You can get clamps just about anywhere. I have these little Irwin clip grip clamps. They work well. You can buy a bag of clamps from Harbor Freight, any of the big box stores. You can get them on Amazon, wherever you like to shop. Just pick yourself up some clamps so you can clamp this together to give the epoxy enough time to set. And then we'll move on to the next step after that. So now that the epoxy is all dried up, what I can do is I can go ahead and remove my clamps, set those aside, and then really what you want to do next is you want to go through and you want to go over and do a real nice sanding of your wing. Make sure everything is the way you want it. Sand off any sections that you don't like. Match up the wing tips. Like I noticed here on my wing just now that wingtip there is sanded off pretty good. That'd be my left wingtip, and I noticed when I did my right, I kind of forgot to round that off a little bit, so I can go ahead and do that. You don't want to round those up too much until after you've installed your aileron stock. Make sure that everything is going to fit correctly when you get that done, and go through and get this nice and sanded up. And in the next episode, we're going to go into starting to get the electronics and everything installed in our build. Now, I will tell you, I did make a decision to change from glow to electric on this model. So I'm going to be using the Balsa USA electric conversion kit for this model. And I'll be honest with you, the reason why I'm doing that is because I no longer have a local hobby shop that's really accessible. The closest one to me is about 2.5 hours away, and I won't be able to get glow fuel consistently where I'm at. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and switch this one over to an electric setup, and we're going to go from there. So stay tuned for the next episode. It'll be out soon. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and happy building.